Hey everybody, what's up? And welcome back for another episode of Let's Talk About It. My name is Amy, and joined with me today is Sarim Khawaja. He is the product lead at Styx Intelligence, and he leads the white hat cybersecurity community here in Vancouver. He is also the co-lead of PM Hive, a networking community for product managers. Sarim was joined with me today to talk about cyber scam mills, specifically what cyber scam mills are, how big the problem is, and what kind of business risk they impose. So, without further ado, let's get into the episode. Okay, and Sarim is here today to talk to me about cyber scam mills, which I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. So, let's start from the beginning. What are cyber scam mills, and how would they differ from what we would traditionally think of when we think of like a hacking group?
Right. Yeah. Great question there. So when we think of hacker groups, right, we're usually imagining lone wolf actors in hoodies, or maybe nation states that are exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities. But scam mills are a different category altogether. They're basically organized factory-like operations that are sometimes literally compounds where thousands of people are forced to execute online scams. Basically, think social engineering at an industrial scale. And instead of malware or exploits, they're weaponizing human trust using scripts and psychological manipulation and emotional bait. So less hacking code and more hacking people.
Yeah, the social engineering aspect of that and the scams that they're doing. So, these scam mills, where are they located?
We've seen prevalence of these sorts of scam mills in a lot of countries in Southeast Asia, just from all of the reporting on the topic. Laos, Cambodia, and a few other countries in that region, like Myanmar, have become hotbeds for this sort of activity. And the thing is, a lot of the people inside of these scam mills themselves are victims. They've been trafficked or lured by fake job ads where they're promised tech gigs or customer service jobs, and then they get imprisoned in these barbed wire compounds. Some examples being Sihanoukville in Cambodia. There was the Golden Triangle in Laos, and then KK Park was another one in Myanmar. So it basically ends up being not just a cybercrime issue, but also a human trafficking crisis.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. So, yeah, I have a cyber scam mill story of when I first became aware of them. Actually, no, I first became aware of them maybe a few years later, but I went to Cambodia to Chinookville, and it was when they were first building it up. It was still under construction. And what I had heard from the local people in the town was that they had a lot of Chinese investment coming in and they were building casinos. So there was just like tons of construction going on all over this little town. And it was like a random a port town in Cambodia. And it's a lot of tourists will go there to take boats into the islands because they're like nice, beautiful islands to go on a nice vacation. But they had just a lot of construction and just a really weird vibe there. Like people were really like I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it.
Sort
But
of
anyways, like a
armed
few years
guards,
later,
that sort of.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not even
Mhm.
like that even wasn't there yet. It was just like why? I guess it was because in the back of my mind, I thought like why would there be like 20 casinos in this one town. It just like didn't make sense. But I didn't think about it that hard and then, years later when we start to talk about cyber scam mills and what they're building and where they're operating, that is one of the biggest places of cyber scam mills. And from what I've learned, they will like be in these compounds. And like you said, sometimes it's these barbed wire compounds, but the buildings that I was looking at when I was there that they were building looked like regular apartment buildings, where they're just like trapped inside and they have these like armed guards outside, but they can't leave. But it just looks like a normal building from the outside, like nothing to raise alarm bells at, nothing to make you think like there's hundreds of people being trapped in there scamming people. So it's I think it so highly depends on where the scam mill is operating on what the conditions would be. Um, because I'm sure that there are plenty worse ones. And then, like you said, all of those people are being trafficked into those places. So it's so scary.
Oh, big time, yeah. And you should definitely trust your senses with with detecting suspicious activity, because yeah, obviously that, I guess you didn't know at the time. Of course, that's one of the places where cyber mills are very common. But yes, the conditions are absolutely horrendous. There have been reports of people's passports being confiscated after they arrive in the compound, so it becomes more like a prison. They look like corporate office buildings, but they're basically prisons, in some cases, with armed guards and surveillance. And uh, the people there are subjected to 12 to 18-hour shifts. There have been reports of denial of food, electric shocks, other sorts of torture tactics to actually get these people to comply and work in the cyber scam mills. And then the psychological side of it, and the psychological abuse is, of course, just as brutal. Imagine being an educated, tech-savvy person and thinking you landed, a great job abroad, and then you find yourself forced to scam strangers for survival. It's just really appalling to think about.
For sure.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the key part to think about as well, as how those people got there, right? Because, like you said, some of it is job opportunity. I mean, most of it is job opportunity, and some of it is, lower level jobs, I guess, like call center jobs, au pair jobs, these kinds of things. But there are also reports of people who are highly educated, who are in a different kind of industry, who think that they get these jobs. Like I heard there was one guy who was some kind of Hong Kong pop star, and he thought that he was going to Bangkok on a audition, and then he actually got put into a car and then carted off into Myanmar, and then he wasn't allowed to leave. So it's like you don't it's you really got to be careful these days, I think, taking any kind of job in a foreign country and making sure that you've like done all of your research, got all of your checks and balances in a row, because that is a legitimate real risk these days of getting, and especially with the job market today in North America, you don't know, right? So like getting coerced into these scam bills, it seems like the most terrifying thing that could possibly happen to you, but it is happening to normal people.
Yeah, very true. And yet another reason to be aware, and always fact check and double check any sort of offers that look
Sketchy. Yeah. Too good to be true. That's true as well. Yeah, they're like promising them the moon to get into those places, right? And then they actually get almost nothing. Yeah. So how wide scale do you think this problem is? Like, is it less than five scam mills? They've got less than 200 people each, or is it like thousands and thousands of people are being trapped in these kinds of places?
it's actually pretty widespread. Most recent estimates put it in the range of like 300,000 people involved, whether willingly
Whoa.
or otherwise. And then the global losses from these sorts of operations was, according to one report, about 34 billion, which is, bringing it close to the level of the drug trade in terms of scale, right? And it's becoming such an issue that the UN, has called it an inflection point for scam operations, because as they're expanding out of Southeast Asia into parts of Africa and Latin America, of course, the problem is only going to get worse. And the issue is that sometimes it's the local enforcement that is lacking or complicit or indifference, and it also becomes a corruption issue in that sometimes that those cyber scam mills are bringing in a significant amount of money into the economy, and then that can become politically a motivation for these sorts of things to go
Mm-hmm.
unchecked. And reports have been telling us is that at times, even when authorities do raid one of these places, the operations just pop back up a few days later under a new name or,
Yeah.
in a neighboring province. And it's like playing whack-a-mole in a system that doesn't seem to want them to disappear.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't think about that, but I'm sure corruption in the form of scams, of course, they're going to use other forms of corruption to make sure that they can still stay in business, which of course is going to involve government corruption, allegedly. We
Allegedly.
don't
Yeah.
know.
According to reports from
Right.
The Guardian.
So what are they doing in there? Like what kind of scams are they operating?
So there's quite a range of those, some of which are pretty low complexity wise, some of which are they can stretch out for, even months. So you've got your basic romance scams or investment scams. Unfortunately, people do still fall victim to those. But then you've got phishing and voice phishing or vishing as well, where the people working in these places can impersonate legitimate businesses in order to perhaps harvest credentials or get a transfer initiated. And within that as well, of course, there's 100 different variations. There could be some sort of like a gift card thing. It could involve telling the victim that their warranty is about to expire, and to renew it, they need to, send a certain amount of money or transfer a certain amount of money or buy gift cards of a certain brand and share them with the scammers.
So all of these though are like personal scams, right? Not a lot of corporate scams going on.
A lot of these, at least the ones originating from cyber scam mails, seem to be targeting just the general public and not so much brands. But then organizations themselves, composed of individuals, of course, and those individuals can be targeted with those various types of scams. And that in itself can lead to, at times, desperate behavior. Like that, there was that case of that CEO falling victim to one of the scams propagated by one of these scam mails, and the CEO actually ended up embezzling from the company in order to try and make up for that incident. And yeah, apart from that, organizations could still be, although they might not be targeted by most of these scams, they can still be impersonated. And so that can become a brand risk for those organizations. If these scammers come up with, convincing lookalike domains, or if they start impersonating some of the executives of those organizations, then it becomes an organization problem too.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think that with the scam mills, right? There's like one aspect of it where like today they're targeting individuals. I've also heard a lot of scams that are related to like help desk kind of things, like an Apple, Microsoft help desk or something. That's how they initially gain access, or you think that they're really going to like troubleshoot some kind of problem that you have, but they're actually just trying to infiltrate your system, gain access, and look at your passwords, your whatever, right? Which I don't know. In today's business risk, it's probably a pretty low risk, even though there's like BYOD, so people are bringing their own devices in, they're getting scammed with their own devices. Theoretically, they could have access to wider passwords other than personal passwords, like your business email password. But that risk doesn't translate over because they don't have the time and effort, and that's not the mandate that they're getting from their employers of like what kind of scams they should be running. But here's the thing, I think the mills are operating already, right? Like we've already got so many with like 300,000 people, you said. So the infrastructure is in place. If they so decided that they wanted to flip the switch to target businesses instead, they've already got all those people in those compounds. They could easily turn that around. And with the introduction of AI and the ability to parse through larger pieces of data to get, who would be the right targets, it would probably be much easier than it has been in the past to execute these like large scale cyber scam mail for businesses. So yeah, I don't know. It's like the risk is minimal today, but tomorrow, who knows, right?
Absolutely, yeah. On the topic of deepfakes, there's that famous example that happened last year with the company's CFO that was impersonated on that video call, which resulted in a transfer of about $25 million. But yes, the complexity will definitely keep increasing, and you're absolutely right in that those same cyber mills could be weaponized against businesses with different instructions. And of course, BYOD, good that you brought that up. I think those same people that might fall victim to a scam could be working at a company, and that they might have corporate resources on the same laptop that, for example, as part of a scam, the scammer is gaining screen access to, like remote management access to, or is able to install malware, in which case that puts company data at risk too.
For sure. Yeah, you just don't know what they're able to access, especially if you're operating in that BYOD program, then, they could have access to your emails. And would it also be true to assume that if these people are scamming individuals, they're probably trying to access like password and username information, and then that information could go onto the dark web, and then that's another avenue of which people's business accounts could be compromised?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have actually seen quite a few examples of corporate credentials ending up in breaches just because of the fact that the user's own device got breached and data was dumped on the deep web or dark web.
Yeah. And then we come to that crossroads of like, is this a personal problem? Is this a business problem? Is it both? Like, because theoretically, it is people's own devices. They are personally getting targeted, like an individual scam, not a corporate scam. So it's not like the business is the original target, anyways. So yeah, I just always find this crossover between personal risk and business risk to be so interesting because more and more the line is blurred and we don't know, right?
Definitely, yeah. There are of course solutions out there that to address this problem, like mobile device management and EDRs and so on. But you're absolutely right about it.
Right, but that's like available for you to shut things down if things hit the fan, right? But it doesn't prevent remote access of random people coming into people's personal devices, right? They can't do that. So it's partially about educating your employees on what the risk is then, and partially just, trying to make sure your systems are hardened, right? But what else could people do to defend against these kinds of like this rise of mass scamming, right?
Well, I think you pretty much said the main thing, which is yeah, security awareness training and basically making sure all employees receive security awareness training, and there's within that there's different levels of quality as well, right? And we would want to, or we would hope that the material is engaging and up to date and relevant enough. If we're still um, trying to teach users about some sort of attacks that are no longer relevant, that that's not as useful for them to know as, for example, the fact that deepfakes now exist, and that's something that needs to be taken into account. Um, yeah, things, especially when it comes to the sorts of scams that businesses can be targeted with, like fake RFPs or RFQs, or just some sort of like procurement requests.
Yeah, or like job applicants now, like people posing as legitimate people who want to get hired, and they actually just either want to gain access to your system or they don't exist and they're trying to scam you somehow. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I think bringing up examples or adding relevant examples from actual incidents that have happened with numbers can be a bit more powerful than just generic slides. Um, but apart from the security awareness aspect of it, it's also important to have processes in place for cross-channel verification, especially for major transactions or major decisions, in a certain level of in-person confirmation or some other cross-channel verification is important
Checking the
to.
IP, making sure they're where they say they're supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Checking, like making sure there are pre-vetted phone numbers, for example, or secure channels that are established ahead of time for certain things.
for sure.
And then on a more corporate level, making sure email security controls are in place, like SPF, DKIM, DMARC, anything that could prevent or help detect impersonation of company's domain. On the one hand, it's not necessarily, so for example, an organization that's being impersonated might not directly be impacted by that. They might not be the victims in the end. It's targeting the public, but it is still using their brand, and there is a certain responsibility to make sure that isn't being used to scam people, right? Putting in those controls, and then of course, working with the right set of tools to make sure you're sort of one step ahead of this on an organization level. Apart from that, I'd say just enabling executives to be engaged with cyber threats and the risks involved on the cyber side is important, because then a lot of decisions end up trickling down from there. And that making sure that executives are engaged
Yeah.
for an organization is quite important.
Yeah, the more buy-in you have from executives, the stronger your security community internally will be, right? Just the attitude towards security, for sure. All right, cool. So, Saram, thanks so much for coming to the podcast. If we want to find you and what you're working on online, where can we look?
Oh, no, thank you for having me. I guess a couple of quick shout outs. As I may have mentioned, I work at a cybersecurity startup called Styx Intelligence. We're actually a digital risk protection services and external attack surface management platform, along with a few other areas like third-party risk, executive protection, and we do deal with some of these areas. If anyone would ever like to know more, please feel free to reach out. Amy will put my LinkedIn in the chat, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And apart from that, I also run a couple of communities on the side. So I started a community for cybersecurity people to meet up and just basically discuss various topics. It's called White Hat Security Community. You can find that on Luma. Also, link in the description. And I'm also involved with organizing another community for product managers and project and program managers that is called PM Hive. That's another one of my hats, I guess. But if anyone is into product management or even PM adjacent, feel free to come by and check out our events.
All right, sounds good. I'll put all those links in the show notes so that you can check those out. And thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Emmy. Absolutely.